This video I'm going to talk about how to read the case study in paper 2. Paper 2, it says here, it's one compulsory case study consisting of approximately 7 questions. So it's really important to have a plan for reading the case study. Don't just go in there and just read the case study. It's important to actually have a strategy for how you're going to read it. I would suggest that there's a specific set of a specific procedure that you know you're going to do when you go into the exam. First thing I would suggest is read through the question and highlight the key words, the key terms that you need to know. Once you've done that, make a note of the key words on the separate case study, because you're going to walk into the exam. There's going to be 2 bits of paper on the desk. There's going to be what they call the insert, or the case study, and the actual exam paper where you write your answers, and those are separate documents. So to make it easier reading the case study, first of all highlight the key words in the questions, and then write the key words at the top of the case study. And I would have a strategy for highlighting the case study, showing where the information to each answer lies, or where the information to answer each question lies, within the case study. Now that's going to make it much easier for you to just come back to the case study. You know, it's quite challenging to interpret. I'll show you a copy of the case study. So here's the question paper. All right, that's what that's going to look like. It's front cover. The case study looks like this at the top, and then it's last year 2 quite full A4 pages of text, and importantly some more information on the back, some kind of numerical data on the back. So what I suggest you do is this: when the exam starts, you go and you have a look at each of the questions, and you get a highlighter and you identify the key term in each question. So this is a question I can see it is a question about breaking even. So just highlight break even, and know that in a minute when I'm reading through the exam I'll be looking out for that. Okay, I need to calculate the operating profit margin. Okay, so I can look out for the information for that. The views of Spark Ventures, I'm not sure what that is, but I'll be looking out for it when I'm reading the case study. Okay, now, so they're the kind of short questions at the beginning. 2 calculation questions, 1 short explain question. Then we get into the 9-mark questions, and the key term in this one, I can see it quite quickly, is outsourcing. So highlight that, write outsourcing on the case study. Spark Ventures, finance. Okay, so the key term in this question is venture capital. Alright, so I'm going to be looking out for information about venture capital. Now we're into the 16-mark questions. Private limited company, despite pressure to become public limited, do you believe the business should continue to be a private limited company? So I know I'm going to be looking for private versus public limited company. Next 16-mark question is to what extent are non-financial methods of motivation likely to be more effective than financial methods? So non-financial methods, financial methods, and this is a question about motivating its employees. So I'm going to be looking for information for that. And finally, the 20-mark question, should ethics be the biggest decision on decision making for all businesses? So this is a question about ethics. And I'll come back to this 20-mark question, because this bit about decision making for all businesses is a slightly different question to what we've been asked in kind of other questions so far, both throughout paper 1 and paper 2. But I will do a video on 20-mark videos. Right, so now when I'm reading the case study, I know the information that I'm going to be looking out for. And I could start with this information on the back here. Okay, so if I remember, it was the keyring supplier who I had to find out if they could break even. And if I know my break-even formula, fixed cost divided by contribution per unit, there's the fixed costs, there's the variable cost, there's the selling price, easy. Right, the information's right there for me. If I know my formulas, I'm away. Next one, operating profit. Just got to remember what year I had to calculate it for, because there's 3 different years here. But there's my information for operating profit. So straight away I can get on with answering those calculation questions nice and quickly. But what I would have done is I'd have transferred those key terms from the case study, from the question paper, over here. So I've got venture capital, I've got ethics, I've got all of those other terms that I'm looking out for. Now, when I'm reading the case study, every time I come across one of those key terms, I can highlight it in the case study. And this is going to be really useful for me, because this is an exam where the answers are in the case study. The information that you can use to build your answer is given to you in the case study, as long as you know where to look. So by highlighting these key terms, as we've gone through, so there was the venture capital stuff, the 9-mark question. Here's some information about ethical behaviour and unethical behaviour. So I know that when I come to that 20-mark question, I can start looking around there. There was a question about outsourcing. Here's some information about outsourcing here. Public limited versus private limited company. Okay, so there's going to be information in that paragraph. And there's motivational techniques, non-financial, tells me to see figure 1. So I know that the information about motivational techniques is going to be in this part of the case study. And there's some more information about motivating staff. So I mean, I've just skimmed through it there. I haven't read it out to you. I mean, I would read it in the exam. I'd go to try and sort of skim read it, take it in, but making sure that I know where the information to help me answer the questions is. What's going to happen throughout this exam is I'm going to get a better and better understanding of this business as I answer the questions. I'm going to be learning about the business as I'm actually writing. So having a system to help you actually, and a strategy for reading the case study is going to be really important for you in terms of building that. Now, I would actually, there are other systems that you can use to highlight the case study, to read, to access the case study. Your brain is really looking for patterns and ways of learning this case study quickly. One way that I really like, that was taught to me by a company called Time to Resources, is called FMOP, where you get 4 colours. You highlight anything to do with finance in one colour, anything to do with marketing in another, anything to do with operations in a third, and anything to do with people in a 4th colour. And this FMOP, again, what it's helping you do is to break down the paper into patterns. Or you could use a SWOT analysis, where you have one colour for strengths, one colour for weaknesses, one colour for opportunities, one colour for threats. So there's 3 different systems that you can use there. Personally, I recommend this one, identifying the keywords. You can use that alongside another system like FMOP, but you've only got 10 minutes or so to access the case study, because you need to start writing answers as well. So reading the case study in this exam is so important. All of your answers will be based on what you find in the case study. So play around with the past papers, with the specimen material, see what works for you, and go into that exam and know exactly how you're going to read the case study to help you answer the questions.